Now, the walkouts are garnering strong reaction from Governor Greg Abbott. He shared our news story from yesterday about two students who were arrested in downtown Kyle after walking out, writing, quote, "It's about time students like this were arrested." He went on to write, quote, "Disruptive walkouts allowed by schools lead to just this kind of chaos." He said schools and staff who allow this behavior should be treated as co-conspirators, and that he's looking into stripping funding for schools. So State Representative Erin Zwiener represents that part of Texas. She's joining us here. I want you to first talk about the governor weighing in on this, your reaction to that.
I'm really sick of seeing grown men bully teenagers. And this is not the first time that Governor Abbott has come after teenagers in my district for exercising their First Amendment rights. The situation he's talking about in Kyle is two students that were arrested for non-protest related reasons that made some bad choices, but they don't deserve to be bullied by the governor. But this is part of a pattern. He also bullied a Texas State student out of the university, Devion Canty, for expressing his First Amendment beliefs. This is not how grown men should treat our teenagers, and I'm calling on him to help turn down the volume and make sure our students are safe and safely able to exercise their First Amendment right.
In fact, you say if the TEA does do some intervening here, getting involved with schools, you're concerned about the safety of these students.
I am, and I'm concerned because we had a grown man assault two teenage girls in Buda, Texas this week who were part of a walkout. And because TEA is threatening our public schools and telling them that they can't, quote unquote, allow students to leave or quote unquote facilitate a protest, that means our schools don't feel safe to have conversations with organizers and try to steer them into a safer direction. It is creating a situation where these protests are going to be more disruptive and less safe for our kids and our communities.
I think some of the language that we're seeing from various school districts across our area is the kids, their First Amendment rights, their constitutional rights are not checked at the door. They're allowed to express themselves, and they also say they can't physically stop students from leaving the school. So what are, organized teachers, administrators supposed to be doing?
I think they're supposed to be giving students advice if they ask for it, but they're certainly not supposed to be tackling students who try to leave school grounds. Now, the schools can enforce their normal attendance policies. What they cannot do is try to penalize students differently who break attendance policies in order to protest than they do for students who are breaking attendance policies for other reasons. But our schools simply don't have the resources to lock every single high school student and middle school student inside. And I don't think that's the type of school I'd want my kid to attend anyways.
When you see the governor saying, things to the effect of funding and dealing with funding, this is one of the things that he said. We're also looking into stripping the funding of schools that abandon their duty to teach our kids the curriculum required by law. More to come. Are you concerned about funding being taken away from schools?
I'm absolutely concerned, and I think this is a straightforward attack on public education, and he is just using these protests as a convenient excuse. No school district I'm aware of is organizing these protests. The students are. And the net effect of this would be penalizing areas where students are more engaged on this issue of immigration and customs enforcement. Our schools need resources, and the governor has been finding every excuse he can to starve our schools of funding, and this is just another tool he's using to attack our schools.
Okay, as this continues to come out, as we continue to see what's going to happen, tell me what you're doing in the meantime to try to protect schools in your area, protect those students and their rights to, as they would say, their rights to protest.
Yeah, well, one thing I'm trying to do is make sure that the truth is told on this. There's so many rumors, there's so many narratives, and I want to make sure the record is clear. School districts in Hays County did not ask students to walk out. And then the other thing we're doing is we are asking Texas Education Agency for clarity on these threats of removing funding and trying to do a TEA takeover. If they're going to threaten this, they need to explain the statutory authority they have, and they need to make those guidelines very clear to our school districts.
And again, as you talk about clarity, we should note the students who were arrested were not arrested necessarily for protest activity, but for something else.
They were arrested for being minors who had alcohol and who responded badly to law enforcement when law enforcement asked them to throw it out.
Right.
Completely unrelated to the protest activity.
Okay. State Representative Erin Zwiener, we thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.